Nanotechnology and Science Symposium, Revolutions in Science and Technology Paradigms. And it's my pleasure to ask the chair of the School of Technology to give us his vision of science and technology education.
I don't know if I'll go that far, but,
but
I appreciate it. I mean, I think the thing I'd like to say, again, we mentioned it last night, and we all had a great time, but Dr. Wabi and Dr. Daniels, you did a great job of setting this whole thing up. The symposium was wonderful. We've got speakers, as I mentioned last night, from all over the university, at all levels within the university. We have community members speaking, students, faculty, staff, administrators. So it's really just a wonderful conference that you set up over the next month. And I just want to thank you again for that.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to seeing all these unique presentations and talking about how shifts in technology have altered society. You know, it's been a wonderful thing. So,
thank you very much.
Mr. Ehrmann's presentation last night. I'm looking forward to what he has to share with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. And how it all started, it started when I went to Dr. Steve Daniels, and I told him, how about? And it took him literally a nanosecond to say yes. So I asked him to say yes again now. Dr. Steve Daniels, Chair of Physics Department.
Well, I am exceedingly pleased to have this come off, and I'm glad that it's going on. And I really want to welcome Dr. Ehrmann. Mr. Ehrmann. Sorry, Mr. Ehrmann. But he speaks like Dr. Ehrmann. I really do appreciate him coming, and this is a wonderful presentation, and this is a great way to kick off this whole thing, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I tell people who don't have a PhD, I say Mozart doesn't have a PhD. It's in Dr. Mozart. I mean, just Mozart, but he told it, so no need for that.
And who's this guy, Mozart?
Well, let me read something about our guest speaker. And before I do that, I would like to welcome the chair of the engineering department at Parkland College. So we thank you for driving all the way.
No problem.
Our keynote speaker, Mr. Robert Ehrmann, is the managing director of for the Center for Nanotechnology Education and Utilization. Now you know who I'm reading, so that I don't make mistakes. In Pennsylvania Nano Fabrication Manufacturing Technology, the NMT Partnership, NSF National Nanotechnology Applications and Career Knowledge NACK Network at Pennsylvania State University. The National Science Center Nanotechnology Application and Career Knowledge, NACK, at Penn State is dedicated to spread the good news of nano education. And we will see that right in this presentation. So without much ado, welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you guys coming out. I am going to be talking a little bit about nanotechnology here in this presentation. And the title of this presentation is Providing Nano for Me and for You. And it's actually a play on words because that's our website, nanoforme.org. So hopefully what I'm really going to focus on today is not a repeat of last night, although there will be a couple things that are repeated at the beginning. So those of you who were here last night will see that. But it's just to kind of get you grounded in what nanotechnology is. And then also, after that, we're going to talk about resources that are available to you, free resources, which are always cool, and things that can be replicated here in Eastern Illinois. And that's hopefully where we're going to, we'll see where it goes to from here. So I'm going to actually, I think did a great job of talking about me. I am the managing director of this center. It's called the NACK Center. It's part of a NACK network, which I'll describe later on. It's a network of universities and community colleges across the country. And actually, my background is I've been working at Penn State in this organization for about 10 years. But before that, I was in industry for 23 years. And then I worked in engineering and management positions for Corning Incorporated before I came to Penn State. So I have some industry experience. So I'm not going to quiz you on what nanotechnology is. But I'm going to tell you, we did that last night, and everybody got nice prizes for contributing. But it's a broad term referring to the manipulation of matter at the atomic scale. It encompasses many scientific disciplines, and it impacts our daily life and our future greatly. And I'm going to show you a quick one here that's very relevant as to how this impacts. And hopefully there's some sound here. We'll see if this works. Didn't tell Lisa I was going to do this, but it doesn't really matter if the sound comes up on this one.
The sound of the computer.
Where is it there?
Down, right?
Down.
Down?
No. There we go. Oh, that's Dan.
Right, there you go.
All right, let me get rid of Dan here. Move Dan out. Oh, I see. Well, it actually isn't playing though either. So. Okay, now let's see. Let me get out of it for 1 second. Try it one more time. Why is that not
Can you
playing?
click on the center of it? Nothing
The play button over on the
Is it the right here?
right side, on the other side.
It usually comes up automatically. Oh, no, that's just the next one. All right. Well, you know what we'll do? We will modify that to some extent here and just show some of the impact of nanotechnology, because we can't show the video. You know, this is just really practical use of nanotechnology. You spill your coffee on your shirt, basically, and you have the super hydrophobic properties here, and that's kind of what this plunger is right here. What that video showed, those who were here last night. So you want one of those, right?
That's
it really is something that nanotechnology is impacting our daily life incredibly, and I'll show you some. I'm not going to really go through a bunch of examples. We did that last night, but I can certainly talk about them as we go through. If you have any questions.
Yeah, how do
On
you
that
wash
video
that
shirt.
shirt?
What's that?
How do you wash that shirt?
And actually, because of the surfactants in the soap, actually enables what basically are there are little whiskers, nano whiskers on each of the threads, and they stand up like a bed of nails, okay? And water molecules go down onto those, and so they can't penetrate down into the fibers or the threads. But what you're doing then with surfactants is you're laying those down and getting to the thread, and then after you wash it and dry it, basically they stand back up.
Wow.
Of course, they don't if you use fabric softener. And I tell this story, and Wafika's heard this story, and you can't make this stuff up. I actually had pants on, khaki pants on. I was doing a presentation several years ago through about 60 professionals, right, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And it was kind of an intro to nano thing, and that was one of the things I talked about was these super hydrophobic things. So they've been around for a while. And I actually decided, I showed that, and all these people were saying, wow, that's so cool, yeah, I want one of those, and yada, yada, yada. And I said, I happen to buy these pants, and they have the same thing, they're Nanotech fabric. So I don't know why, but I had the water, and instead of pouring it like on my knee and letting it roll off, I poured it right here. Whoops. Khaki pants, blue shirt, khaki pants. You can picture, jacket, all professional and all that kind of stuff, which doesn't really happen all that often. And there I am, sitting there with wet pants, and I had used fabric softener on them. Not a good thing.
Not only do you remember that, so do they.
I got a lot of mileage out of that, because people seem to relate to doing stupid things like that, and I do a lot of them. Dan will attest to that later on. Anyway, so this NNI is the National Nanotechnology Initiative, and it's actually out of Washington, D.C., and they kind of are the people that are keeping their arms around what's going on in nanotechnology in the country. It's a great, their website is nano.gov. You can go there for looking at looking for solicitations for money and so on. ATE is where we're funded, National NSF, Advanced Technology Education. I believe Parkland might have some grants through that. And They actually put out this little intro to nano book pamphlet several years ago, and they put out this nano and energy thing. And one of the things one of our partners did just this year is they converted it to Spanish language for a Hispanic population, which is really, I think, pretty good for the U.S. There's a lot of Hispanic, and some of our partners are Hispanic. So well, I tried to get a couple copies of that, except I emailed them last week, and it came back and said, we're closed. So they may be open today, I don't know, up and running. But the key thing here is that their vision is the future, and this is the 2012 or 2011 vision, a future in which the ability to understand and control matter at the nanoscale leads to a revolution in technology that benefits benefits society. And basically, that's what this is all about. This seminar is all about revolutions. We talked about this a little last night. Lots of workers are needed to make this revolution move forward, if you will, and lots of degree programs are springing up all across the country to make that happen. We were the first in Pennsylvania because industry came to my director, my boss, Dr. Stephen Ponash, and said, we need workers. This is back in the late 1990s. It was really for the micro industry, which has evolved into the nano industry, because microfabrication, basically, we got smaller and smaller. As we got smaller and smaller, because of our electronic devices, we started moving into other areas and saying, let's look at copying nature and look at all the other things that are available at that scale and things that we should be exploring, like some of the products that we've got here on this table, and many, many, many more that are out there. So now we've helped to spawn a lot of programs across the country, and they spawned on their own too. But from the standpoint of the funding from the U.S. government is very, very strong in that area. I don't think I put the graph in here, but it's an upward climb of money in an era where money is being cut in many, many areas. Their strategic plan is basically to advance R&D in this area, okay? Because there's lots to be explored at the nano scale, lots of stuff to be discovered, and to enhance basically products and utilize them for commercial benefit. So basically, they're making this investment because in R&D and in business, because they want to pay off basically, and they want to have payoffs in this particular area. And in order to make that happen, we need to develop and sustain educational resources. And that's what we're all in this room are about, is about educating the populace, if you will, and getting a skilled workforce. And also in investing in infrastructure. So there's money out there to invest in infrastructure in nanotechnology. And that's one of the things we will talk about a little bit more, about how we have invested in that infrastructure in Pennsylvania, and some models of what's going on around the rest of the country. And of course, doing this all responsibly so we don't have any issues down the road, unintended consequences. So where is nano used today? Well, I told you it came from like the electronics industry and semiconductors. That's where everything started, in order to make things at that scale repeatedly and reserve battery level. Your battery power is low. 7%. I better talk faster. Help, Lisa, help. Anyway, I'll just keep going. But in order to make things reliably and at that scale, scale, we had to create the fabrication and improve the fabrication devices as well as the characterization devices at that scale. Ooh, turning it on, that's a good one. There we go. Those electrons don't move without it. I love that. All right, so it was in the electronics industry, semiconductor industry. That's where kind of the spawn of nanotechnology was. But it's also in things like pharmaceuticals. I showed a little video last night about curing cancer. You know, how just one company, a local Pennsylvania company, but they're all over the country and all over the world, working on curing diseases and detecting diseases earlier, utilizing, and many of those are utilizing nanotechnology. By the way, last night, the one with the plunger, was telling Lafiq earlier, you know, the one with the plunger and the shirt, everybody goes, wow, and cool, and wow, that's great. And that is everybody in the room. And every time I show those, you know, like, it's like, awesome, that is so cool. The chocolate on the sneaker and stuff is really cool. The curing cancer memo or video is like, oh, you know, curing cancer, getting chocolate off your shoe, which is more important. It's chocolate, I guess, unless you have the cancer. Colloidal chemistry, polymer science, material science, medical biotechnology. And as I mentioned last night, the only reason there's not more on this slide is because it's a very busy slide as it is, and there could be more areas that you could kind of point to that are utilizing nanotechnology. So this is a slide about kind of like, and this could be anywhere. This could be out in the courtyard outside, and you can kind of take a picture and see if there's any nano in this picture. Now, some of these are internal to bodies or internal to vehicles and things like that, but you can see in this picture, and this was taken in, if you notice, it's in the background, it's McDonald's, but there's, it's German writing on there. The gentleman who came to our workshop says, I know that square, it's in Stuttgart, Stuttgart, Germany. So anywhere in the world, basically, you're going to find nano. Anywhere here in Charleston, Illinois, you'll find it, in Mattoon or whatever, you'll find this nanotechnology. We established last night, there was lots of nano in the room, things we didn't even talk about. Somebody came up afterwards and said, how about, you did, right? How about this dollar bill? I said, yep, there's nano in these, or a $20 bill, which you didn't give to me, by the way. I don't know why. But you can, things like, carbon nanotubes, which are 10 to 100 times stronger than steel in bike frames or light of anything that you want to make stronger and lighter weight. And they're utilized in many different applications. There's whole industries in carbon nanotubes out there. Things like cosmetics and sunscreens and so on, utilizing nano-sized particles as opposed to macro-sized particles. And there's all kinds of things going on in that area. Basically batteries, biocompatible materials for internal biocompatibility and wear resistance. For instance, like if you're getting a hip or a knee or something that wear out after time, now they're looking at how do we extend the life of those things by using much more wear resistant thin film coatings that would include nanotechnology. So there's lots of stuff going on in many different areas, and of course all these electronic devices. Name an electronic device and they all have nanotechnology in it.
Football helmets?
What's that?
Football helmets?
Football helmets, they do. They do. There's stuff there's materials that are what's it called? Non-Newtonian fluids, basically, that are utilizing nanotechnology, and they're really cool. I don't know if you've seen those pad D30. Maybe after I'll show you this video. There's some cool videos where people take, and the kids would love them. You take they take shovels and they whack them over people's heads with this padding that they have on, and they don't even feel it. So then they use them they're now using them in sports equipment and so on. So what's NACK? That was kind of the really quick introduction to nanotechnology. Sorry you missed last night. If it wasn't you over here, wasn't last night. To talk about what some of the other products that are out there. We can talk about them more if you have questions. But NACK, this NACK network, what we do is we build partnerships between colleges and universities. That's why there's people from community colleges in the organization as well as university people to talk about these partnerships and what we have developed, and talk about how maybe in this area there might be some possibility for creating a workforce utilizing partnered or shared resources. And I'll tell you a little bit more about later about some of the advantages to why you might want to do that. So the mission of NACK is to enable nanotechnology education at 2-year community and technical colleges, as well as 4-year universities and colleges in partnership with community and technical colleges. I interacted with Wafik actually a couple years ago, last summer, summer 2012. He came to a workshop, and he's been coming to workshops and conferences ever since, trying to figure out, okay, what are we all about? How does this all work? And how might it integrate into Eastern Illinois? And that's why I'm here today, to kind of say, okay, what's the next steps? What can we do here? And he asked me to come in and talk a little bit and meet with some people, and that's what we're going to do. So the reason we're focused in that area, we're Penn State University. I'm a part of Penn State University. Why are we doing this? I told you that they came, PA industry came to my boss and said, we need to do stuff. We need technicians. And he said, well, am I going to get my engineers to be the technicians at this point, these plants and these factories? Well, no, not really. Probably what we're going to look at are basically people from the community college level, hands-on folks that want a really great career and a viable career to be able to do this. So then we partner with community colleges, and that's where we wound up working with the NSF ATE program, which is focused on 2-year or associate level education. Okay, so what's our approach? Our approach is to build partnerships. That's why I'm here today, and we're working in many areas of the country, and I'll show you later about some of our success stories, if you will. Educate for a wide spectrum of industry, not the industry that's next door today, but give them a broad foundation so that the students have the ability to, hopefully that company doesn't, but it might move down the road or move out of state or out of the country. Basically, they have a broad foundational nano education, if you will. And then we want to enable community college and technical college delivery in the entire U.S. So what I'm going to talk about now, because Dan's not here, and I want to make efficient use of his time too, is just one of the things that we're doing here is remote access and control. And this is one component of, hi Dan, I think your mic just went on.
Yes.
Yeah,
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, just you got some background noise, just mute for a second, okay? Thanks. And so what I'm going to talk about is this remote access and control. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to this. We have many things that we offer and resources that we offer, and this is one thing we're offering right now. And one of the things that Dan is doing is working with community colleges, universities across the country that are interested in actually doing this themselves. You know, we're actually a focal resource to do this, to do remote access and control. It's not just remote access, it's not actually just kind of watching somebody do something, it's actually getting the students to do hands-on work themselves. That's really where we're driving, is be able to remotely actually do that. So you can go basically from our lab to any classroom, or to right here in this room right now is what we're going to just demonstrate it. So what remote access is doing is bringing this nanoscale characterization to practitioners via audio and video immersion. Very easy to do nowadays, obviously. We just came up with a new program to do that, and we've been doing it for about 2 months using this, but we had previously for years used something else, and this I think is an upgrade to what we're doing. So basically they can learn the scientific fundamentals about their tools and processes and their applications remotely, or via videos that we have created. And then we want to do these relevant hands-on activities, basically so you can get qualitative and quantitative observations done kind of from a remote standpoint. So we have tools available, and we have a bunch, anything that is digitally controlled, we can basically help you to make it remotely accessible. And we've done that with all our tools in our laboratory. But the coolest ones are the ones that you're looking at something or you're observing something. They're characterization tools. And these are a listing of some of the ones that we have done externally. But by far, the biggest ones that are the highest, the coolest ones, if you will, and the ones that we use more than any, are the FESEM and the scanning probe microscope. And I'd say the FESEM is probably 85 or 90% of the time, because it really is kind of a very cool tool to be able to utilize.
So Bob, our students can have really lab there without having the space. We don't have the space, for example. We don't have the equipment, for example. Right. So we can kind of, as if we are there.
Exactly.
So extension room.
Exactly. So you can do a lab from at Parkland, for instance, and you decided that, oh, we're going to do some kind of make gold nanoparticles, if you will. You can make that in the classroom, and you can either ship those gold nanoparticles to Pennsylvania, and we can actually look at them on our scanning probe microscope and our FESEM and our spectrophotometer, and they can kind of put reports back to have deliverables back to the instructors. Or you can do a cookie show style, like, okay, we've got that, we have our things there, and then in that same period, or same class period, they can actually just go in that lab period, make them, and then, oh, now we're going to sign on and do a remote characterization. Now, obviously, a big question is going to be, well, boy, if everybody did that, could they be able to handle that? We're at the kind of nascent stages of this. We've been doing it for a couple of years, but we now have, and we're encouraging as many people to do that across the country as possible, because it's a great way to form these partnerships. You know, if you have equipment here, for instance, at EIU that you can make remotely accessible, boy, it would be a great way to reach to Parkland or other community colleges and say, okay, you're using a graduate assistant or somebody who's fluent in scanning probe microscopy or scanning electron microscopy, and they can actually reach out to there. So that's the way we want to, where we really want it to go is create this remote access network. We're calling it, because it's us, the NACK network remote access. But no, I don't know what we're calling it. Dan, what the heck are we calling it? I don't remember, but he has some creative names for it.
Yes. So Bob, the question is, what is the new brand name we're going for our remote program?
Yeah.
Sure. So it's RAIN, R-A-I-N, for Remotely Accessible Instruments for Nanotechnology.
Thank you very much. So we'll rain down some nano on you. I came up with that pretty quick. That was not bad. Anyway, you were listening. That's good. So how can this remote access be utilized? For an outreach experience, for workshop demonstrations. I would consider this in this. I'm doing an outreach experience right now. This is what we're going to do. For workshop demonstrations, we've done that. We've done remote workshops remotely, or people have done remote workshops and actually tapped into us. For class demonstrations, to supplement equipment, you have equipment at your thing, but you don't have, some people have scanning electron microscopes, which are cool and good, but they don't necessarily get down to the nanoscale. Boy, now let's look at this via microscope, via scanning electron microscope, and let's look this on a field emission scanning electron microscope. What can we see on those different things? And you can see different instruments, and what kind of new data do we get by looking at it at different magnifications. So we do that, and then for hands-on access by your students for those deliverable things that can go back in the classroom. It's not that, like in here, or if we had 25 people in this room, and they were students, some of them would be on their cell phones, some of them would be, kind of like, oh, this guy's boring, when's he going to stop? And then some people would be really into it, and that's, we're really trying to get everybody. So in order to get everybody, we want this hands-on experience, so they have deliverables, so they really get it when they get out of there. Because if not, it's really good to be able to. We really preach hands-on. So just we have a bunch of data that we've collected over time, and Dan just showed me some new data recently, and I haven't had a chance to we haven't had a chance yet to put it into our metrics here, but would you recommend this activity? And we've been doing it for a while, and basically the data so far has been very positive from both students and teachers. There's some people that didn't say, nah, I wouldn't do it, but about 85% of the teachers said, 100% of the students basically said they would do it, or near 100%. So let's try it. We are now going to Alt-Tab, or Control-Tab?
Alt.
Alt-Tab, thank you. We're going to Alt-Tab. If I can find tab. All right, where are we? Wait, oop. If I could see, if I had better eyes, I'd be able to get there.
Blue circle.
The blue circle. I'm going to be rescued in a second here.
Okay.
Hang on. Lisa's rescuing me. Where's Dan? All right, there we go. I already have him up, that's why, I guess. All right, cool. Dan, we see you in full color.
Full HD.
This is Dan
Yeah,
Cavanaugh.
all right, now everybody put on the 3D glasses. Hey, hi.
This is Dan Cavanaugh. Let me introduce him for you for a second. Dan is actually a graduate of our program. He went on to get a baccalaureate degree from Millersville University in Millersville, Pennsylvania, which is down there, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, if you know the geography there. And he has a degree in technical education, basically. What's it called? What's the degree called?
So it's science of education with a focus in applied engineering and technology.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say. I think that's what I just said. Anyway, so Dan has actually been working with us for over a year now, and he worked as a teaching assistant while he was in school, and then we hired him on, and now he's responsible for this remote aspect project, basically, and working with people across the country. And I'll let you take it away, Dan.
Okay, well thank you for that introduction. Hello everybody. I'm sorry I can only see the blue and white brick wall, which reminds me of Penn State, so I'm at home here. But waving hi to you all, hope you're doing well today. I'm going to quickly show you, thanks Bob. I'm going to quickly show you our remote access programs. Right now you're just seeing me, and this is a great aspect of the remote because for outreach, especially for high schools, it helps to show, you know, scientists and engineers are real people. I can make quips, I can make funny jokes, and I can engage them directly. So as far as your outreach programs, you can do the same thing. I use it for recruitment. I'm going to go down next couple of weeks and present at schools, and I'm going to do this remote. I'm going to be down there. They're going to remote up to a graduate student here. They're going to be able to see these tools, see people in action, see what's really going on. And of course, it has a great educational engagement aspect to it. And of course, the reason why I'm wearing this funny garb is because I'm in our clean room here at Penn State. So aside from me talking and jabbering on all day, what I can do quickly is I can go to screen share. So using the Zoom software, I'm going to tell it to display my digital interface for the electron microscope, for the FESM, field emission scanning electron microscope. And I believe you're seeing the screen, the black and white image, correct? Oh,
Yes, correct.
fantastic. So that's a live image. I can zoom in a little bit and you'll see that change. I can zoom back out and you'll see that change on the microscope. And in fact, if I switch to TV mode, you can see the inside of the chamber. And this is our microscope. If you choose to put up your own tools for remote access, you have your own way and ability to express this. So I have a number of different samples. We're probably only going to see one or two today. If we have time, Bob, you know, we can have a volunteer up. Quickly, I'm going to show you, go back to our electron detector. So this is the in-lens image as we saw before. And I'm going to show you how you can actually control the tool remotely using the Zoom software. I'm going to turn the controls over to that desktop, but for demonstration purposes, so everybody gets a feel for things. Up here on the top row of icons, we have the center icon. I click on it, I get these green crosshairs, and then anywhere I click, the stage will move, the image will move to that location. To zoom in, I just click on this magnification button, again up at the top, mag button. And I use my scroll wheel, I just scroll up, like I'm scrolling up on a web page, and I start to zoom in. I start to increase the magnification. And of course, this is a good opportunity for the classroom instructor or even for myself for a longer remote, where I'm, as the remote instrument manager, fulfilling more of the educational component, to be able to talk about, you know, what does it really mean to increase magnification for electron microscope? It's totally different from a regular objective microscope. And I actually just did an activity about a week or two ago with a middle school class that was studying exactly that, studying different scientific instruments in microscopy. And so I did a little lesson like this on electron microscopy. And they thought it was really interesting because they were all thinking Star Wars and laser beams and death rays. And, you know, you say an electron gun, it means something totally different to them. But through this educational remote access, they got to see it and use it in action. So now we're at a pretty decent magnification. We're at, let's go to 60,000 times magnification, as we can see on the bottom right-hand corner here. Now the image is kind of blurry though, so we can also adjust focus. So again, I click on the focus icon at the top, I hover over this cursor over this image, and then I use my scroll wheel to kind of scroll up, see if that makes it better or worse. If I have to, I can scroll back down. And here we go. So now we can see pretty distinctly these white dots, which are actually gold nanoparticles on our silicon surface. So if you've ever seen red stained glass, or maybe you've seen the actual solution of these colloidal gold nanoparticles in like ruby red colored fluid, this is the nanoparticles seen directly. And what I can do finally is slow down the image and make it a nice pretty picture, something worthy of a journal. And as it scans through, I can take measurements. So this could be part of an analytical operations. A student lab could be synthesized. I'm actually going to do this next week. Down in Allegheny College of Maryland, they're synthesizing cadmium selenium nanowires. They're going to do different growth times. They're sending me samples, and we're going to image them and measure them to figure out exactly what their dimensions are by varying growth times. So if I click and drag, after clicking on this point-to-point measurement icon, I can see that these nanoparticles are around 30 nanometers, which is the ideal red color for these gold nanoparticles exhibiting plasma resonance. And of course, I can save these images, and then what I would usually do is post them onto a Google account, like a photo bucket kind of account, and then the students could download these all at once. The instructor would be able to send out the link, They could download them at will and put them in their reports as needed. Okay, so that's me and controlling the tool, but let's have one of you people use your mouse over there on the desktop, hopefully I'm pointing down towards the desktop, wherever it is, and you can actually run this tool. Bob, do we want to look at a different sample, or do we even have time for another volunteer?
Why don't we just use that sample rather than switching, because we are running a little behind and I want to be cognizant of that. But
of course.
I have for the volunteer, I have a pen. So do you want to try this? No, come on.
Come on, the pen is lighter than the sword?
Now you get the pen. Watch the cord there. I do bribery well. You talk to you being an arm twister, I'm an arm twister too, I guess.
Hello, I'm Dan, who are you?
I'm Kathy.
Hi Kathy, nice to meet you. All right, so we're gonna stay with a sample. Ideally, you can see this ring in the image. So we drip dispense these gold nanoparticles so they capillary reaction dry towards the outside, forming a ring. So if you click anywhere within the band of that ring, there's tons of gold nanoparticles to look at. So if you go ahead and click on the center icon up at the top, get those green crosshairs, and then click anywhere in that band, and then we can start imaging from there.
Is that obvious?
Yeah, you're squinting.
I can see it.
Can you find the center one? Yeah, there you go. You got it.
Right there.
Yeah.
Is it right?
That ring, right?
Yep, right. Okay. You're right there. Can you see the crosshairs okay?
I can see the crosshair.
Just
All right.
click. Now
Yeah, so just all you have to do is click with the index finger, and it'll zoom you over, move the stage over to that location.
And actually, you can use the mouse right there.
Oh, a real mouse?
Yeah, real mouse. You can use a real mouse. That'd be easier.
Life is good again.
There you go. Now you're.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have a trackpad also because it's a laptop. Yeah, you're probably going to be much better off. There you go. Perfect with the regular mouse. All right, so now we can go up to the top row icons again. Click on that blue circle, says mag. Okay. And then we're just going to hover that cursor over the image, black and white image somewhere, and then just scroll up. And you're scrolling up on a web page, and there you go. You can see the magnification increase at the bottom. You can also see the scale bar to give you some frame of reference. So we're at 2 microns now, so we're smaller than a red blood cell, 200 nanometers. Now things are looking pretty blurry, so let's maybe even back up a little bit. Here, I'll scooch us back for a second. And let's try adjusting focus. So if we go up top row of icons again, click focus, there you are. Hover cursor over the window, and then kind of scroll up, and it's hard to tell, I guess, which is the right way. Basically, it's just trial and error. Scroll, if that makes it worse, then scroll down, it'll eventually get better. So go ahead. All right, I think there you go. I can see the image is getting much better. Now you can start to see those gold nanoparticles come into focus.
Nice.
Okay, so if we want to, we can again use that center icon, land on one of those nanoparticles, then we can increase magnification again, and zoom in. And we might need to focus again as we go down. And this is the engagement part. This is where students can really see a microscope in action. They can see their samples in actual space. So this is where this remote access component really plays well into the curriculum and educational needs of many instructors, because otherwise you can make the gold nanoparticles, you make the right colored fluid, but you can't really do much with that. You can just say, oh, I'm sure we made nanoparticles, or I'm sure we've done nanotechnology, but seeing is believing, right? Okay. So we're looking for those nanoparticles, right? And do you want to keep zooming in so we can measure these?
Yeah,
okay.
Zoom a little bit further.
So, yeah, the mag button again.
Hit that mag, there you go, right there.
Okay. Bingo. And again, scale bar is telling us we're at 200 nanometers. On my screen, it's like 3 inches or so. That's a pretty good image right there. And now what we can do is go over and slow down the scan speed. So this is always interesting to tell students, and some of them get a real kick out of it. I say, all right, if we click on this drop-down box, we can choose a higher scan number, which means we're actually moving this electron beam at a slower speed. We're getting more field emission, or we're getting more electrons. So Kathy, if you go ahead, click any one of those higher numbers, above 5, probably below 10. And we'll see the image comes out much clearer because we're getting a better signal. We're getting more electrons in, more electrons out of our sample. We can even go down, choose a higher number of scans. We can tell the electron beam to scan over every single line of pixels 10 times. And I like to analogous this to how a TV operates, or an old cathode ray tube TV, which some students don't get anymore. But as we can see, the image looks much better as we scan through, and we can go up to the top point-to-point measurement icon up here. I'll go ahead and click it for you, Kathy. And then we can just click and drag on the nanoparticles and say, all right, how big are they actually? You can just click on that measurement again. You can manipulate, drag it
Go
over.
back up to the top and hit that icon again. The next one, the right one. All right, there you go.
No, I'm sorry, no, Bob, she was right.
Wrong. You were right first time. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. There we go.
Great.
There we go. Perfect. So we can see this one actually in, I'm going to delete the other measurement real quick. We can see actually, it demonstrates this is agglomeration. So you can see smaller nanoparticles, and I'll measure that one real quick, right next to it. So that one's closer to the 30 nanometers that we wanted, that we expect. And we see as these nanoparticles dried in the solution on our solid surface, they actually started to agglomerate. The capping charge that kept them in the colloidal suspension began to dissipate. They started to agglomerate, started to grow, and now we have ones that are 3 times or larger of the size than we started with. So this is kind of a great example of something unexpected that we get to see. All right, and I can even save this image. We'll click Control-E. We can save in a new directory, etc. So this is all ways of reporting and getting the images to students or to instructors, researchers.
Great.
Okay,
Excellent.
and then I could send this off to you later. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Kathy, you did so well that you get extra stuff. You get this intro and nano stuff. You get all this material here because you were a pro. Yeah.
That's the software program.
What's that?
The software or whatever that you use, is that something you distribute to the different institutions?
Actually, I'll let Dan talk about it a little bit more, but we actually had a program called Log Me In that was point to point. It was only us to EIU or us to Parkland and one computer to one computer. Well, now what we've done is we bought this new thing, which is not, and he'll tell you the cost because I'll say it wrong, but it actually is a software company called Zoom. And we have actually, now it gives us the ability, if you had a computer in this room, you could actually he could share control with you, and you could, all 3 of you could actually, in addition to this computer, could actually then get, take your turns at actually doing the remote. So if you had a team doing it, you could do like that. We really like that aspect. Or you could do it in here, and in Wisconsin, and in Pennsylvania, and in wherever. You could do that all at the same time and integrate those schools together. So it's called Zoom. And what's the cost of it, Dan?
The cost of Zoom software, it's free. So to sign up for a personal account, it's completely free. You just register like you're registering a Google Gmail account or something. And then you can have unlimited number of meetings, but they're only one-to-one meetings. So I can, like Skype used to be, I can connect to you, Bob, at this laptop, but if we invite other people, we can only do up to 25 people for, I believe it's 40 minutes for the free account. Now we pay, at Penn State, we pay $100 for the year, and then we can do unlimited number of multiple user sessions up to 25 people doing a remote like we're doing right now. So having 24 more computers scattered throughout Indiana.
Illinois.
Promoting it in,
Illinois.
I'm sorry, Illinois. I'm sorry, my apologies.
It was an I state, you're close.
Anyway, so we can do multiple numbers of these 25, up to 25 participant sessions for unlimited time. And then there's other kind of ways you can work it out. But the real benefit is only Penn State only we have to pay for that. Only one person has to pay for that during a meeting of 25 people. So your users don't have to buy a software package to have a multiple user account. If they just sign up for the free personal one, it's no cost to them. They really don't have to do that much work. It's a simple little application, takes 10 minutes to download, and then they can participate in this remote access up to any number of users that the institution wants to have.
Great. Lisa did this last week last week actually set this up, and very, very, very easy to do. Basically, download the application and so on. So you can do that. Now, however, if you wanted to say, I want to enable some of my equipment here or Parkland or there, do that, then it probably behoove you to pay the $100 for the year, so you don't run into like, because we actually, before we had it, we were doing some meetings back and forth to do some testing. So do we want to buy this or not? It's only $100, but we still did that because we wanted to test it. And then, you know, after we don't think you're in there, you're there for 35 minutes and saying you're going to go off in 5 minutes. You're going off in 5 minutes. And, damn, we didn't get that purchase order through yet. So it's nice to have it because the time.
So what does it do that you can't do with Skype? The remote access?
Dan, the question was, what does it do that you can't do with Skype?
Remote control and remote interface. So Skype is just this, what we're doing right now. I've turned off the share screen, so now Skype did allow share screen. But what it didn't allow was for me to actually give you control of that desktop or that specific window, so you could use your cursor like we just did and actually manipulate my program, my microscope. So Zoom is really Skype plus actual remote control. And we actually used to use Skype to do this video conferencing component, and then we used to use a separate application, LogMeIn, which was a RAD remote administrative tool. And we used to use those two tools together to do this remote access program. Now, I think Zoom's on, it's about 2-3 years that it's been public now, and it facilitates both components very well, and it thus uses less bandwidth and kind of less hassle to set up.
Okay, and Lisa's going to buy that tomorrow, I think. See, the PO will be coming through. All right, Dan, thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and we're going to move on to the next step of the presentation. So everybody say goodbye to Dan.
Bye, Dan.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the conference.
All righty. Bye-bye. Alt tab, right? Oh, it went right there.
So does he have labs then going all the time with remote students all over the?
Yeah. He, actually, we have on our site, which I'm going to show you in a minute. We on our Nano for Me. Remember this title is like Nano for Me and for you. We actually have a remote access tab that he's actually right in the process of redoing. We have a partner in Arizona that's helping us with that. That's going to make it a nicer site, and we're actually integrating those remote access nodes from across the country that we've kind of brought on board. It's actually, those happen through workshops. People come to workshops, I tell them about it. I think it would be really cool for you to do this because it's a great way to do outreach. And it's a great way to do outreach, say, from your school to your local feeder schools, from your school to the people that you articulate with, for instance, to be able to reach back into those communities, even if you're just doing it for that. $100 a year, utilizing your time or somebody else's time, is a lot better than, well, you might want to do it, you might want to go in person at one time, but maybe the next time you come back and you do some kind of remote thing and you show them something that you've got here that's really cool, that entices them to come to Eastern Illinois from Parkland. So I think it's a great way of doing outreach, if you did nothing else, of doing this remote, and we're kind of trying to set up this system across the country through our national network to be able to make that happen. So anyway, okay, so we tried it. Everybody thumbs up, pretty cool? Cool, thank you. So it's worth the drive down at least, right? All right. So now I'm going to loop back. I showed you this slide before. What is NACK? Okay, I told you about what our mission is. Told you about what our approach is, basically, to build these partnerships. And enabling this delivery, this community college delivery, we try to, this is one of the ways that we do it, basically, is through this remote access to help to build this. Because it's kind of hard, we can't go everywhere and can't go back and forth. You run out of time and you run out of money very, very quickly. So doing this some of this stuff remotely, like integrating Dan, because Dan could have been here, could have tapped in, but that's pretty costly, so we're doing it this way. I just gave Kathy this report, this PCAST report. We're funded by the National Science Foundation, ATE, as I mentioned before, which is in the Division of Undergraduate Education. And basically, we just got some nice accolades last year on this, and they really like the federal government really likes this partnering aspect and working together aspect between universities and community colleges. As you know, there's more emphasis on workforces, more emphasis on getting the workforce ready for STEM careers, basically, and educating them. And they really like our model of these partnerships, of not the community colleges trying to do it all alone, doing it in conjunction with universities, and that's why we're in the room today. This is our one of our success metrics here. Is the things that are going on around the country right now. And these are the education hubs that are university and community college technical partnerships. And we have them in, the first one was in Minnesota. We brought Puerto Rico on back in 2008, and they're doing our 6 courses that I'm going to tell you about in a couple minutes, and they're doing them carte blanche, basically. They took our courses and they're plugging them in down there. We're going down there in November. It's not because it's nice down there and not as nice in Pennsylvania, although there was a factor. There was a little bit of a factor there that I get to go down there. It's kind of cool. Our network partners are meeting down there. In Puerto Rico, we're doing a workshop for there and doing our network meeting. So Dakota County and University of Minnesota. In Texas, there's one of the community college systems, the Northwest Vista College, basically. And I have this on a graphic too, by the way, if you want this, for anybody who wants that. It kind of shows that. And basically, the University of Texas at San Antonio. In Seattle, they've got it in the Northwest, one of the community colleges there. They're also a regional center. Us in Pennsylvania, as I mentioned last night, the partnership on steroids. In New York, we're going to talk about that at lunch, talking about what's going on in the New York area. This is one of the areas up in the Albany area. Ivy Tech right next door in Indiana. They actually have a partnership at Ivy Tech in South Bend with University of Notre Dame, and they started integrating courses. They came to our workshops, and they actually started integrating those courses carte blanche, basically, and putting them on a little bit at a time. And then last summer, they did their first capstone. I think they had 7 students last summer from across the Ivy Tech system, which is all, as you probably know, is all of Indiana. Basically, that's their community college system. And then in Arizona, the partnership is with ASU as the central facility that has the equipment. And then they're working with Central Arizona College as well as the Maricopa, which is about 30 miles east of Phoenix, and the Maricopa Community College System, which has about 250,000 students. It's a huge community college system. And we're working at it in other areas all across the country. And that's a development, some of it's pull, some of it's push. We went actually, like for instance, this is a kind of a pull, if you will. You kind of said, oh, this is something I want to do in Eastern Illinois, and I want to see what might be possible here. So you know, we're focusing on some really metropolitan areas too, like in DC. One of the ones is in Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia. A lot of defense things, a lot of industry, a lot of things going on. It's like, boy, you guys are like missing the boat by not doing something like this, because there's a strong need, because they bring people down from Pennsylvania. Our students go down there and work for Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, you know, the National NIST and all that kind of stuff. They bring ours in. Well, why don't you have something there to educate your people here that in this area? So we're working with them right now. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about these 6 courses, and I'm going to kind of give you a listing of what they are in a couple minutes. The suite of 6 courses, we developed them way back when. We started them back in 1998, and they've evolved over the years, okay? And they're taught as a service by Penn State. So they're on the books at Penn State, but they're also on the books at the community colleges. So they're jointly listed. So if someone went to Parkland, say you had the courses here at EIU, they would be you would be offering the service, and they would be potentially, this is one way of doing it, they'd be sending the students here for 1 semester, a capstone semester, where they would get their degree from Parkland, but they would get a certificate from you in nanofabrication or nanotechnology or whatever you want to call it. And in Pennsylvania, the credits come from their home school, and it's done different ways in different places. And in Pennsylvania right now, the state government helps to supplement their cost, because they're actually putting money in. That homeschool tuition doesn't really cover the cost of the program. So the state makes up that difference, and we get paid for the students. It's not per student, but it's per, you know, we get a grant basically to cover that. And we've had about 800 students go through, and it's that central facility model. And in Pennsylvania, it is truly the center, because we're in the center of the state. We actually, if you see those yellow dots there, or gold dots, those are all the feeder institutions across Pennsylvania that send to this capstone semester that's offered twice a year in the spring and the summer. And they come for this hands-on semester, and they either move out to industry, or jobs in, working in a lab somewhere, a government lab, or wherever, or they move on to other academic pursuits. For instance, baccalaureate degrees. There's a lot of articulations. I know there's articulations. Not at the beach.
From 814-865-9635.
That's Lisa. Lisa, I'm not going to talk to you right now. Here you go. Hello? Stop! Okay. Quick story. I was telling Steve this earlier. In the summertime, right, I go to the beach at the end of the summer for a couple of weeks. We have a place in New Jersey. By the way, they got hit by Sandy last year, got destroyed. It wasn't on the beach, but it was in the, it's near the bay there. And a couple of months before, just to get myself ready to go to the beach, I changed. I said, oh wow, I got my new smartphone, and oh wow, it has a seashore thing. So I go, oh, it's seagulls. So this would come up, and every time it rang, I'd say, oh, we're going to go to the beach in a couple weeks. That'll be cool. I can get through this day. Well, when I went to the beach, my relatives would be calling me, and I'd say, why didn't you answer your phone? And I said, you called? And then I looked, wow, there's 7 messages there. Well, because they're seagulls. And at the beach, it sounds like seagulls. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So they actually go out and they move on for baccalaureate degrees, or they move on. We've been in existence long enough. Many of those students have gone on for masters and PhDs and are working out there, and some of them are teaching the subjects that we're actually are working on. Like Dan is actually a graduate of the program, and we have another gentleman who's now working with us, Zach, who's actually just decided to go on for a PhD. So he came from a community college. Actually, he's one of the guys featured here, is Zach. He actually was working in Walmart. Okay, we brought him back into the STEM thing, and he was working in Walmart, learned about nanotechnology, and said, you know what, this is something I really want to do. I'm really interested, and grabbed him, and he decided to go on and finish his associate level, go back, finish his associate level degree, and then he went on to a master's in material or a baccalaureate in material science. Now he's going for a PhD in material science, which is kind of a nice material science and engineering. I mentioned last night, we didn't make this up on our own. The skills that we teach are basically stuff that it was asked for by industry in Pennsylvania initially. We had an industry board from Pennsylvania, and now we have a National Advisory Council. We've kind of evolved into a National Advisory Council, but we made sure that we kept small-sized companies on there, and we kept it as diverse as possible from a standpoint of getting input from various industry sectors, as opposed to one particular industry sector. We really want to make sure that these students are prepared and have the skill sets necessary to move from industry to industry as the needs arise. And just to show the diversity, this is not an electronics program, this is not a physics program, sorry. This is not an industrial technology program, this is not a biology program, this is not a chemistry program, this is all of them. They fit into all of these disciplines. And you can see our 52 degree programs that we feed basically have all of these, all of them have programs like this, and they feed our capstone semester. So the students that come are basically a melting pot of students from all these various disciplines, from baccalaureate as well as associate programs across Pennsylvania. I mentioned this already. We try to give them a general approach or a solid foundational skills, and it's a skill set that actually sets them apart from their peer group, because if they're taking something, say they're taking a physics program here, well, that's cool, you got the physics program or whatever it might be, and you got that degree. Now, how many do you have? Well, the one that has this is really going to be a much more valuable asset when they go out there. Many of our students have gone on they take this between their sophomore and junior year or during their sophomore year, they go on to REUs. They're the ones that are the first in line for the REUs, and a lot of them move on to graduate studies past this. So we have some nice statistics on that also. This is the skill set they learn during the program, if you will, the 18 credits. They learn basically EHS awareness. They learn processing, foundational skills like vacuum technology, and many different areas there. Nanoscale patterning, top-down and bottom-up nanofabrication, characterization. We just saw some of the characterization. You don't just get these wow gee whiz stuff about we just looked at gold nanoparticles and measured them. You really get an understanding of how that instrument operates, why it's there, And then you can actually, then when they go out, they get hands-on training on it, they have an understanding, and they're very valuable when they come out. And very importantly, we give them professional skills. They work together, basically how to work together in teams, because they're in teams the entire semester, the same team as they go through the semester. Because that's a cohort that goes through. Last summer we had 36 students, so we had 8 different groups of students that worked through that center or that semester. This is the courses, and actually these could be just picked up and plopped in wherever, here in Eastern Illinois. And you can take them as is or modify them as you see fit. We have permissions to utilize that. Most of the stuff is our own stuff. Where it wasn't our stuff, we got permissions to use for education purposes. And you can take them from our website, which is on your pen, nanoforme.org. You can actually kind of pull all those courses. They have the lecture materials available, as well as videos of the lectures for professional development, if you will. Or if you want to integrate them into a classroom, you could do that. And also the laboratories. All of the laboratories are there too. Yes?
And professional skills component you showed on one of the previous slides, where is that? Is that
That's embedded in all of them, because I didn't really go into it, but they work in groups the entire semester. So they actually have to do presentations, and it's taught in 2 courses, 2 courses, 2 courses, okay? And there's a project for the small project here, the first 2 courses, the first 5 weeks of the semester, if you will. That's a deliverable by that team, that Max Mix team of multiple disciplines, multiple levels, associate, baccalaureate. Then there's a second one with that same team, a higher level, and then there's a major project here during this last one where the teaching actually at the beginning is very high, the teacher interface, and then as it moves down out through the semester, basically they're doing more of the teaching, because they actually present on their particular topical areas. So they'll present on a group on biocompatible materials in prosthetics or something like that, or their optical devices, or it could be anything basically, biomedical engineering type stuff. So
if Eastern or Parkland would use these courses, we need to keep the title E?
No, you can call them whatever you want. We have an example of that. There's a Maryland school, or actually UDC, University District of Columbia, is actually in the process of creating it, and they kind of took what we had and kind of and I'll show you that in a second, they kind of threw it up in the air and said, what do we want here? Well, we're going to have 5 courses, and they're going to be titled this. They're close to what these say here, but we decided to title them something differently. In Wisconsin, they actually have an emerging technology program. They started in Nano, and they're now calling it like emerging technology, and they're actually taking it, and they have different spin-offs from there. That can be, you get some foundational skills. You can go in kind of this nano option, or you can move over here, you can move over here. And I think that's a nice way of doing it too, where the students get a variety of different options in engineering technology. These are just a listing of the jobs, and they're very diverse in the companies that are hiring our grads. And this is just the Pennsylvania grads. We're keeping track a bit on what's going on around the whole country. And these here are these companies there really is no commonality between these companies. They're very small companies, multinational companies, and they're in every industry sector you can name. And what the key thing about this is they're working in micro nanotechnology jobs, not micro nanotechnology companies, because they're not really, nobody titles themselves micro nanotechnology companies. And that's a key for figuring out, if you're in this area, well, do you do micro, do you do any nanotechnology? And it's like, well, maybe, maybe not. I'm not going to call myself, PPG is not a micro nano company, okay? They're a materials company. But do they do micro nanotechnology? Do they have a need with people with that skill set that I listed there? And the answer is yes. And they hire graduates that have that skill set. And that's true anywhere in the country. So we're doing surveys in Arizona right now. And then in Colorado, they're using that same survey of industry to figure out, not do you do nano, do you do this? Do you need people with this skill set? I don't care if you call it one of our advisory boards, national advisory board said, I don't care, I look at that skill set. You really do that at the social level. Yeah, we do that. We've been doing it for years. And they were new to our board. He says, I don't care if you call it great. I don't care what you call it. We need that skill set. That's the key thing, is the skill set is not what you call it, basically. So I don't care if you call it nano or whatever, but giving people that skill set is I think, the important component of it.
Was it Shakespeare who said, "What's in a name?"
It's in the name, exactly.
A rose is a rose.
Well, it is important because people will say, you know, I think Kathy mentioned earlier, well, we said that there was not necessarily nano jobs or nano industry or nano whatever, or need for nanotechnicians. Well, is there a need for people with this skill set? I would submit that in this area, there is. You know, especially if it's, you know, part of the reason we do it with the state is because nobody has to, if you had a program at Parkland that had 2 students in it, or 4 students in it, or 6 students in it, you'd probably be cutting it for financial, right? Now, if you had Parkland and Eastland and whatever the other ones there, they're all coming together, and the only thing you're doing is providing the students, providing the foundational skills, and then working with, say, EIU, then you could potentially create a program that, yeah, I'll support that. Why not? I'm getting that, I'm feeding my industry, I'm doing what I need to do, and I don't have to invest in the equipment that's being done somewhere else. You know, so, and that's the key, is the cost of the program, and the cost of keeping up with the technology, and just the cost of maintenance contracts on things that you might have too. It's important, you know, to be able to support this. And again, in the same theme, we did a survey of our graduates a couple of years ago, and this is the National NACK Alumni Network Committee, which I also talk about in a minute. This is just a survey, and this is a listing of some of the entry-level jobs that the students got when they came out of the capstone. And some of them have nano or micro in their titles, but most of them do not. Most of them are standard job titles. So if you went on Monster.com when you leave this meeting and said, let me find nanotechnicians or nanotechnologists, how many jobs are there? Not so many. Now, not calling them that. Does that make sense? So if you go to your administration, if you're on the administration, you're like, oh, well, you can't justify it. Well, yes, you can, but you have to do a little bit more work than doing to make that happen. Okay, so I won't go through all these. This is a survey of our graduates. 60% were in associate degrees, 40% in baccalaureate. So we had a good mixture in there. Very positive responses on what it did for them. Over 90% success positive. This is an interesting fact. This almost 70% classified themselves as involved in the nano field. Okay, that's a pretty good rate of the people that have come through the program. And at the time of the survey, which was 2 years ago, 95% were either working or in a full-time degree program. This is some feedback from one of our customers, if you will, a company in Eastern Pennsylvania, which has about 15 of our graduates to date, and probably more coming. They have a posting up right now with us. That's one of the things we do, is we offer a way to keep in touch with them is, and it's very easy, is and especially in a startup program well, and we just kept it, but I encourage us across the country, is that somebody is in touch with industry and say, well, if you have a posting in that particular area, just send it to us, and we'll send it to graduates that have kept up to date with us. And we now send it out to any of those 775 students who've kept up, or alumni who've kept up to us, and we just send it out. They give us the posting, we collect the resumes and forward it on. It takes us about 35 seconds to make that happen. And it's a nice way to keep in touch with industry, and it's a nice way for us to keep in touch with students too. It's a good way, especially on a startup type program or new program. Do you have a minute to show this thing?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Many of the innovations that are part of our daily lives are seen as IT innovations or medical innovations or even green tech. Actually, these are material science innovations. Without material science, these technologies would not be possible. That new cell phone that has all these innovation features, that's not really a programming innovation, that's probably a materials innovation, because that super cool screen has a lot of material science in it. Material science is essential for the continued innovation in IT, in medicine, and green tech. That's where the graduates of the PA NMT program come into play. They bring the skills and backgrounds and hands-on experience that we need in electronics, and is essential for our success. Of course, innovation is only possible if there are innovators, and that's where the graduates of the PA NMT program come into play. They bring to electronics the skills and background that we need to be innovative every day. They are our innovators. The graduates of the PA NMT program that we employ at electronics
that's what we utilize at Penn State. This company was a small company, I mentioned it last night, that basically said, they were very small about, when I first started, so it's 2005 or so, somewhere around that range. They were out of one of the first advisory board meetings that I was at when I was learning to spell nanotechnology. And basically they said, well, you have that skill set, I don't know, I'm not sure where you're coming about. We're a PhD level, we're a research company, we don't do nano, basically. And I mean, we don't hire anything but PhDs or advanced degrees. And they saw the skill set and said, well, we'll interview. So they interviewed and they hired an individual. And I told people last night that the first day that the guy had an idea that the other scientists didn't come up with right at that table, and they all heads turned. And now they have about 25 or so of our graduates. They're a company of about 100, and they're growing. And they're like any small company, they're looking for funding. They might not be here tomorrow, depending upon where the technology goes. But they've grown to at least 100 right now. So that's kind of to me, a great success story, and that's a market for the students that come out of these programs, or these small and startup companies, because the PhDs are now working at as he mentioned, 2 years later, they said our PhDs are now working at the right level. They're not in the laboratory trying to do the development and doing the characterization and fabrication. They're the ones with the ideas, and they're feeding 5 of those technicians. So this is just you probably have thought of these already, but these are the kind of the advantages of the central offering model. The resource sharing, the equipment and staff are in one place. Expensive equipment, some of the equipment is expensive, but you can get away with desktop models and used equipment. We've do that at our Cleanroom. We do used equipment. You get refurbished equipment. It works great, and we help people to say, what do I really need to make this program go? That's part of what we offer. And the staff are available for the EHS stuff at the university. That's a key component there that you don't have to worry about at other places. For community colleges, you don't really, in Pennsylvania at least, they don't create any new courses at any of our partners. They basically use the foundational science and tech courses, then send them to us for this capstone semester. In other places, they don't do it like that. At Ivy Tech, they're teaching the courses right at Ivy Tech South Bend. And they're saying, we'll do that, and then we're just going over for the lab at Notre Dame. That works fine too. That's fine. However, it would work, and what's in it for me type thing for the university as well as the community college community. And you don't need to invest in the expensive equipment. Basically, they have the staff. You don't need that, and it's attracted to multiple disciplines. It's not just in the EET or in the manufacturing, engineering, technology, or whatever department. You can open it up to all the sciences, and wise students will actually go and take a bio degree with a nanotechnology, this kind of fabrication, characterization, and so on. And it creates the pathways to the universities for articulation.
Is it typically housed in the sciences department? Or?
No, it's involved. Through our Nano for Me, if you take a look at that site, you can click on the site at Pennsylvania. If we have time after this, I'll do that. You can go to the site, click on Pennsylvania, and it'll show how diverse it's in technology, it's in the community college, it's in the technology areas, as well as the science areas. Some schools have chosen to be in just the technology area. Some have chosen to be in both, some have been either or. So it really depends as to, so some are AS degrees and some are AAS degrees. They were something called an AAT, whatever it was. There were a bunch of different areas where they integrated this curriculum into. So for a university, what's the benefits is basically you're doing a service, something you're partnering with these community colleges, supporting local economic development, very, very important, obviously, and the future. Basically can build support if you have user facilities here, and it's helped to build university support as well as bringing in users for facilities and other people that you're working with. So you're actually extending your reach. If you have graduate students or postdocs, you can use them to help to teach the course, to teach the laboratories if that's what you're doing. You have research support. Use these instruments for research. It helps you in your research areas, and that's, my boss is doing that in our area. And you get a pipeline of really good students that are coming in. We have criteria of the students that come in, and there's a carrot out for them. They can't come in and say, well, I'm just going to get through and do that nano program and get a job. Well, they better be doing the strong foundational stuff, and say they better and somebody at your school is going to recommend them to come to it, or you're not going to take them because you don't want them if they're kind of like not serious about their educational careers. So I'm going to give you some more of the resources. I talked about this nano.gov. So I've talked about the program now, and I'm going to tell you what's available that you can kind of pilfer, if you will, or take from us, and it's really not pilfering. This nano.gov is a great site, as I mentioned earlier, and I believe it's going to be up and running again today, hopefully, or tomorrow, because the government is up and running now. This is our Nano for Me site. Actually, it's changed a little bit. We changed it. I need to update this picture a little bit. But it's key thing here is for students, it's for alumni, it's for educators, and it's for industry. And by far right now, our strongest audience are educators, and that's who we're working with, mostly with educators. We're also working with alumni. Those are our two strongest areas, alumni of our program, as well as programs all across the country that have nano programs. Anybody in this, though, that are green here, have nano programs, nano degree programs somewhere in that state. And you can click on there and see what's going on in Illinois. There's a program up in, actually they cut it, it's at Harper College. Harper College, Sam Levinson up there, and I can't remember her name. Anyway, people up they're working at a program there. They were working in partnership with DCTC program in Minnesota. But actually across the country now, you can look and see what programs are there and what are the alumni doing from those programs, and we encourage them to kind of tell their stories. And right now we're working on, from a recruitment standpoint, moving some of those stories into our student site and making that much more student-friendly, if you will. And that's one of the initiatives we're doing right now, is moving that out there. And we're working with industry too, to shore that one up. Oops, didn't want to do that. I actually just clicked. You know what? I forgot that I went right to the site. So that's really the site today. You can see it has changed a bit. I forgot that I had that right there. Okay, so post-secondary resources in the educator section, which is the most important to you right now. We have post-secondary resources, educator workshops, webinars, where you just did remote access, K-12 resources, interactive multimedia. So lots of stuff going on. You just have to, we're not going to go through a website thing. You can do that on your own if you're interested in doing that. This undergraduate level stuff that we're primarily talking about is actually all available, as I mentioned, the classroom presentation, the hands-on lab, the matrix for each course. It's all available to you to download. I know that Rafik has actually looked at a lot of this material, and he actually came to our workshops. And this is what I mentioned earlier. You can actually take that course and right now in, where was I saying? In DC, in the DC area, in UDC, they're actually taking it and mixing and matching it and doing it however they want it. You know, taking the elements of our course. If you don't like it that way, you can figure out and do it a different way if you want to. So it's kind of you can do it however you want. The material is there. The key point in this is that the material is available. You don't have to start from scratch to create a program, and we're there to help. That's our mission, is to basically help these workforce development programs.
It's free?
Bavarian cream. Cost you Bavarian cream donuts. Yes, Kathy.
The 18, is it 18 hours then?
Yes.
Okay. And so, and I noticed that there are 200 level.
Yes, they're 200 level courses. Exactly, very good.
Okay. And so, what kind of math and?
Algebra based.
Okay.
Algebra-based physics and sciences and so on. So it isn't calculus-based stuff. It is not high theoretical stuff. Now, however, I told you the diversity of the students that go through. Some of them have taken at their home schools and are going on and going to be future PhDs or whatever, or future engineers or whatever. They've taken the higher level sciences and maths and calculus and so on. They come to it and sit next to the guy who's going to be, or gal who's going to be terminating with an associate's degree, and you're going to be very happy and going to get a good practical job and be out there, be contributing, so they'll be in the same classroom with them. So it doesn't matter, but it's based at a 200 level for those people.
But the technician level people, the jobs are in research and development labs?
No, that Psyoptics is not that's actually a production facility. Basically, they're working in the production facility. They're working on the line, basically, if you will. And then Plextronics is a development company, if you will, but they're not a research development. They're out there trying to actively explore their technology and move the technology forward. So it's more like a lab but it's also in a production line now. They've created production lines, and those people have moved into management positions within the company that people have done, where they're, when we started 7 years ago or 8 years ago, some of them are now leaders in the company, if you will, and evolved through. Yes?
I can kind of speak to that too. Sort of, you know, just moved from New York recently and started here, but New York, there was a MEMS manufacturer that, you know, they titled them super technicians. They needed 2-year degree people that were, you know, adept at nanotechnology stuff. So they hired a lot of people, and that again was more of a production facility, but it was a clean room environment. And then there's a huge semiconductor manufacturer in the Albany area that
Oh, yeah.
you know, hired a lot.
Global
of
foundries.
people.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Yeah, so they're very, very valuable.
They're industry positions for these people outside of research.
Yeah, it's not just R&D labs, although that is a component of where people would go. They are definitely needed in line positions and in technician positions within industries, and especially small and medium. Now, a lot of the larger size industries like the Intels and so on are going to almost all automation. So they really have engineers, if you will, helping to run the lines, and they need, the technicians that they need don't necessarily get that skill set. They're the ones that are hydraulics, they're doing all the different,
Keeping that line moving.
keeping the line moving, controls, hydraulics, and all that kind of stuff. So they're not really the key customers, if you will, for our graduates. Ours are more about the process and about the quality control and about the, you know, they're not necessarily, some of them, however, that are very valuable happen to be coming from a maintenance program, and they have that in addition to this. They're those super techs you're talking about there. So they get the hydraulics and the controls and so on like that. So, okay, and we already talked about this, remote access, and we already tried it. And the other thing we have is professional development opportunities, and this is something that where I met Wafiq, is basically the webinars, workshops, and conferences. I'm going to briefly talk about those. 2 types of workshops, intro workshop. Wafiq, I don't know if you came to our intro workshop or just you came to the...
I think, yes.
Yeah, okay, well, that's where we did this activity originally, right? Yeah, so then you were there, okay. So we do intro workshops, which are 3-day hands-on intro workshops, and we've been doing them for years and years, and we're really the only place in the country that are doing this. And we actually, the cost of these, both of these are free, but you have to qualify. And the qualification is you are actively looking at something, or for staff or administration want to come and learn more about it, they can come to our workshops, and we will bring them in to Pennsylvania and come to our 3-day workshop, and then follow up with you and see what are you doing. Like Wafiq and I have been talking, and other people all across the country. And then the hands-on are 3 days, and these workshops for educators to learn how to implement our courses are there also. And those are 2 4-day experiences. First 3 courses, second 3 courses. And they're really learning about what we do, also a little bit about the technology. You can't cover a whole semester in 8 days. So I'm going to quickly go through this. We've had over 1,100 educators. We've had many states in Puerto Rico and DC included in there. We have one more workshop coming up, which is completely full in November right now. But we have I gave you a schedule, and you guys grabbed it last night, of our next year's now in North Carolina talking. His name is escaping me right now. I just talked to him last week. I don't know why, I can't remember. But anyway, he's talking, and what these webinars are, and they're all archived. Basically, if you went to our Nano, for me, went to educators, went to webinars, you could actually say, what's going on in nano and medicine? You know, there's a medicine here. I know there's a medical center right down the road here. There's things here. What's going on in nano and medicine? Let me look and see. Let me go spend an hour looking at this webinar and determining, oh, that's kind of cool. And then look at all the nano materials, nano electronics, nano whatever. And then it's also things about programs. How we started up our program here in Indiana, here in Arizona, here in Wisconsin, this kind of stuff, which are different necessarily from ours. So you can learn about that by just looking at our webinars. And the alumni network I talked about earlier, and it actually is for the alumni of our programs, but we also encourage students who are interested in a program here anywhere in the country to go there and get an idea of people who are in their age group or peer group, seeing what are they doing with this degree program. Why should I get into a nano program? It's a great place to go. That's why we're going to migrate a lot of this stuff into the student site, so it's because it's more intuitive for it to be in the student site. A listing of the companies of hired graduates broken down by basically industry sector, if you will. And I took my best shot at that because some of them are multiple industry sectors. And then we actually list them, that chart that I had, as well as other things that we learned about across the country. Where are they getting jobs? And that's very, very important, obviously. And then we do conferences. Well, you went to the M&T conference in Minneapolis, right?
Yes.
This year. So we've had there are 6 ATE centers focused in M&T, or micro nanotechnologies. We're the national center, but we also have Maytech in Arizona, who's one of our sub-awardee funded partners. There's actually Nanolink in Minnesota that I mentioned earlier, Neotech in the Albany area. SCME focuses on MEMS. You mentioned MEMS. They're actually in New Mexico, and then Shine in Washington is actually another one. And we actually we have this conference, and we decided to do this a couple years ago to build and foster nano across the country. And basically, the next one coming up is in June of next year, and it's going to be back in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we're rotating it across the country. And you can go to this site, and you can get all the resources there. Everybody that's there that I mentioned, all those centers, all have the mission of helping community and technical colleges across the country. So most of not all, but most of their resources are free. You can go on there and grab the resources and pull them down. Some of them are trying, for sustainability, to sell some of the resources, but I'm not sure where that's going to go. We're not sure of our sustainability plan at this point, frankly, because everything's out there for free, and we're going to figure out where we're going in the future. But we're hoping that we can still continue with the government. This is our teaching clean room. Dan was in there before. He was actually doing his. That's where he was, and we actually utilize this teaching clean room as well as the clean room at Penn State. We got K-12 resources, introductory level stuff. So this is not our main mission, but we've created over the years intro to nano courses, if you will, or modules that have been turned into courses at many places, and others are actually funded to do this. And I think that's it. And we have a lot of, this is just a tipping, the tip of the iceberg of materials that are out there. Yes. Okay.
What class?
I'm out of answers.
What class clean room is that?
Class 100,000.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's not class 10, it's not class 1, it's a teaching clean room. Okay. So it's not there for production purposes. Right. And frankly, if you're doing teaching, you don't necessarily have to have a clean room, but it's nice because we teach a clean room protocol. So there are rules. You must gown up and do the things. If you notice, Dan didn't have a full clean room garb on. And in other clean rooms, they have masks on, they have the full garb on, they have the full booties and all that kind of stuff. Not there. It's really just there. It's really a pharmaceutical type level clean room.
And then do you keep track of student flow through your 6-course program? So at these different sites, you've got partners all over the country.
Yeah.
You know how many students they have in those programs?
We try.
We try. Talking about 5 students in the program, or
it really depends. It really depends. And some of them are very, very active. In Indiana, they've had some pretty good success.
And the local faculty actually deliver the courses.
Yeah, the local factory at Ivy Tech is delivering the courses. They have 1 faculty member, 2 faculty members, and a technician actually delivering the program. And they have a good program going there. Now they're actually a sub-awardee to us right now. Eventually that will end. But they're to get the program if the NSF has invested in getting that started, and that could happen in other places in the country.
There's always economics to the decision.
Yeah, and actually, the NSF ATE has project grants. You can go for a project grant there, which I think is up to $1 million for 3 years or something like that, where if you can get a critical mass and make the case that this is what we want to do. And a key thing is...
That's tipping. Just before we officially close,
okay.
I want to acknowledge, before thanking you, but I want to acknowledge Lisa.
Yes.
Because she is one of the persons behind the scenes. You can see how efficient she is, and I'll ask our chair to help me doing this.
Great. Oh my gosh.
Yes. And Lisa, please come in here. All the students are with us, appreciating her work.
Absolutely, I'll do that too.
You have been so good, working behind the scenes, and she is very knowledgeable, courteous, efficient. So
absolutely.
From all Eastern Illinois University, from the conference, from everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa, did you say you were in Dallas last week?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, when I went to the Cowboys Pro Shop, I went, hey, I want to stuff my name on it.
a Giant fan, sorry.
So are we.
Okay. Let's have an official photo. Let's close this.
All right.
Come with us, please. Come with us.
Actually a play on words because that's our website, nanoforme.org. So hopefully what I'm really going to focus on today is not a repeat of last night, although there will be a couple things that are repeated at the beginning. So those of you who were here last night will see that. But it's just to kind of get you grounded in what nanotechnology is. And then also after that we're going to do talk about resources that are available to you, free resources, which are always cool, and things that can be replicated here in Eastern Illinois. And that's hopefully where we're going to, we'll see where it goes to from here. So I'm going to actually, Rafik did a great job of talking about me. I am the managing director of this center. It's called the NACK Center. It's part of a NACK network, which I'll describe later on. It's a network of universities and community colleges across the country. And actually, my background is I've been working at Penn State in this organization for about 10 years. But before that, I was in industry for 23 years, and then I worked in engineering and management positions for Corning Incorporated before I came to Penn State. So I have some industry experience. So I'm not going to quiz you on what nanotechnology is, but I'm going to tell you we did that last night, and everybody got nice prizes for contributing. But it's a broad term referring to the manipulation of matter at the atomic scale. It encompasses many scientific disciplines, and it impacts our daily life and our future greatly. And I'm going to show you a quick one here that's very relevant as to how this impacts. And hopefully there's some sound here. We'll see if this works. I didn't tell Lisa I was going to do this, but it doesn't really matter if the sound comes up on this one.
Well, good morning and welcome to the first EIU Technology and Science Symposium, Revolutions in Science and Technology Paradigms. And it's my pleasure to ask the chair of the School of Technology to give us his vision of science and technology education.
I don't know if I'll go that far, but
Dr. Austin.
but I appreciate it. I mean, I think the thing I'd like to say, again, we mentioned it last night, and we all had a great time, but Dr. Wabi and Dr. Daniels, you did a great job of setting this whole thing up. The symposium was wonderful. We've got speakers mentioned last night from all over the university, at all levels within the university. We have community members speaking, students, faculty, staff, administrators. So it's really just a wonderful conference that you set up over the next month. And I just want to thank you again for that.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to seeing all these unique presentations and talking about how shifts in technology have altered society. You know, it's been a wonderful thing. So,
thank you very much.
Mr. Ehrmann's presentation last night. I'm looking forward to what he has to share with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. And how it all started, it started when I went to Dr. Steve Daniels and I told him, how about? And it took him literally a nanosecond to say yes. So I asked him to say yes again now. Dr. Steve Daniels, the chair of physics.
But basically there are little whiskers, nano whiskers on each of the threads, and the thread, they stand up like a bed of nails, okay? And water molecules go down onto those, and so they can't penetrate down into the fibers or the threads. But what you're doing then with surfactants is you're laying those down and getting to the thread, and then after you wash it and dry it, basically they stand back up.
Wow.
Of course they don't if you use fabric softener. And I tell this story, and Rafik has heard this story, and this, you can't make this stuff up. I actually had had pants on, khaki pants on. I was doing a presentation several years ago through about 60 professionals, right, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And it was kind of an intro to nano thing, and that was one of the things I talked about, was these super hydrophobic things. So they've been around for a while. And I actually decided, I showed that, and all these people were saying, wow, that's so cool, yeah, I want one of those, and yada, yada, yada. And I said, I happen to buy these pants, and they have the same thing, they're Nanotech's fabric. So I don't know why, but I had the water, and instead of pouring it like on my knee and letting it roll off, I poured it right here. Whoops. Khaki pants, blue shirt, khaki pants. You can picture jacket, all professional and all that kind of stuff, which doesn't really happen all that often. And there I am, sitting there with wet pants, and I had used fabric softener on them. Not a good thing.
Not only do you remember that, so do they.
I got a lot of mileage out of that, because people seem to relate to doing stupid things like that, and I do a lot of them. Dan will attest to that later on. Anyway, so this NNI is the National Nanotechnology Initiative, and it's actually out of Washington, D.C., and they kind of are the people that are keeping their arms around what's going on in nanotechnology in the country. It's a great, their website is in this department.
Well, I am exceedingly pleased to have this come off, and I'm glad that it's going on. And I really want to welcome Dr. Ehrmann. Mr. Ehrmann. Sorry, Mr. Ehrmann. But he speaks like Dr. Ehrmann. I really do appreciate him coming, and this is a wonderful presentation, and this is a great way to kick off this whole thing, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I tell people who don't have a PhD, I say Mozart doesn't have a PhD. It's in Dr. Mozart, and it's just Mozart, but he told it, so no need for that.
Who's this guy, Mozart?
Well, let me read something about our guest speaker. And before I do that, I would like to welcome the chair of the engineering department at Parkland College. So we thank you for driving all the way.
No problem.
Our keynote speaker, Mr. Robert Ehrmann, is the managing director of for the Center for Nanotechnology Education and Utilization. Now you know who I'm reading, so that I don't make mistakes. In Pennsylvania Nano Fabrication Manufacturing Technology, the NMT Partnership, NSF National Nanotechnology Applications and Career Knowledge NACK Network at Pennsylvania State University. The National Science Center Nanotechnology Application and Career Knowledge, NACK, at Penn State is dedicated to spread the good news of nano education. And we will see that right in this presentation. So without much ado, welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you guys coming out. I am going to be talking a little bit about nanotechnology here in this presentation. And the title of this presentation is Providing Nano for Me and for You. And
The sound of the computer flow.
Where is it there?
Down, right?
Down.
Down.
Low.
there we go. Oh, that's Dan.
Right? There you go.
All right, let me get rid of Dan here. Move Dan out. Oh, I see. Well, it actually isn't playing though either. So. Okay, now let's see. Let me add it for 1 second. Try it one more time. Why is that not
Can you
playing?
click on the center of it? Nothing
The play button over on the
Is it the right here?
right side, on the other side.
It usually comes up automatically. Oh, no, that's just the next one. All right. Well, you know what we'll do? We will modify that to some extent here and just show some of the impact of nanotechnology, because we can't show the video. You know, this is just really practical use of nanotechnology. You spill your coffee on your shirt, basically, and you have the super hydrophobic properties here, and that's kind of what this plunger is right here. What that video showed, those who were here last night. So you want one of those, right?
That's I was going to ask you.
It really is something that nanotechnology is impacting our daily life incredibly, and I'll show you some. I'm not going to really go through a bunch of examples. We did that last night, but I can certainly talk about them as we go through. So if you have any questions.
Yeah, how do you
On that
wash
video.
that shirt?
What's that?
How do you wash that shirt?
It actually, because of the surfactants in the soap, actually enables what they're